Ehret and his teachings, and we're going to have some memorabilia for everybody to take a look at. My name is Rob Miller. I'm here with Alvin Last, who's the owner of the Ehret Literature Publishing Company. We're both going to be given a different portion of this talk on Ehret's life and on Ehret's teachings. Is there anyone here that's ever read any of Ehret's books before or knows anything about Arnold Ehret? Very good. Anybody who ever felt even slightly inspired or a little bit inspired by reading some of Ehret's books? Yeah. Anybody here that totally revolutionized their lives after they read Ehret's books and it was really a great event for you? For me, it very much was. I think that Arnold Ehret to me was one of the really great and profound inspired geniuses of this whole raw foods and nature cure, or what it was called at that time, the nature cure movement. Ehret was born in 1866, and he came up at a time when there really was a very big, what they call nature cure movement in Europe. It was a movement towards living within the natural laws of life. There were a lot of great people at that time, like Adolf Just, Louis Kuhn, Father Knight, who was well known for his water cures. And Arnold Ehret, in some way, he took what was going on in the nature cure movement and then really started to, through his own personal experimentation, really brought it to a whole different level of inspiration and also understandability for people. One of the things that really strikes me right away about Ehret when you read his books is the simplicity. And this is chapter 1, in case anyone can't see it. Chapter 1 of Mucusless Diet Healing System. Every disease, no matter what name it's known by medical science, is constipation, a clogging up the entire pipe system of the human body. Ehret just said it as simply and as succinctly as possible. He didn't really get into so much the difficulties of things. He just said it very simply. Your body is a tube system. Your body is a pipe system, and you can think about that where we have all these pipes. We have the blood vessels that run. We have the capillaries, the blood vessels, the veins that run through our body. We have the whole nervous system, which is really just tubes. Our bones are tubes. And Ehret was saying, any disease that you have is just a constipation, a clogging up of those. And he chronicles really, actually very well in his books that constipation comes from wrong diet. And he calls it mucus. So he says it's his mucus. His mucus is what's clogging up all of our pipe system, and also clogging up the spongy tissue of our body. Today we call it toxemia. We call it there's all kinds of different names for this internal filth, this internal uncleanliness. And Ehret, he also, the wonderful thing about his books is he really deals with the natural laws of the human body. He went and looked at, well, how does every other animal in this world live rightly? And here's another great quote. The first cure, I first learned about Arnold Ehret. I was living in northern India, the foothills of the Himalayas, in a town called Almora, or just outside a town called Almora. And I was living with a doctor named V.P. Khanna, Dr. V.P. Khanna. And I lived at his yoga health resort. It was just the two of us living at really the top of a mountain in the foothills of India, studying yoga. We did yoga between 5 and 8 hours every day. And he introduced me to all the greats of the nature cure movement, like Adolf Just, like Louis Kuhn, like Father Knight. And he also, one of the first things he did when I got there is he put the book Rational Fasting in my hand. He said, you really have to read this. And I read that book, and it was a complete, the words immediately got me. And that was the first book, Rational Fasting, that really let me know we do not have to eat cooked foods or we do not have to eat the foods of so-called civilization to be healthy. It was the first book that really let me know that I could eat 100% raw food diet. Because I was eating mostly raw foods then. I was eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, but that rational fasting was the first one that really let me know you can concretely do this. And in Ehret's book, one of the things that Dr. Khanna told me, he said the first cure of Ayurveda, the first cure of homeopathy, the first cure of yoga therapy, and the first cure of nature cure is to fast, which is what every animal in a disease condition, any animal in pain, any animal which is wounded, the first thing it's going to do is fast. And Ehret had a great way of putting this. Fasting has been known for hundreds of years as a compensation against every disease, as nature's only and infallible law, as nature's first law. And it's really true. Anyone here has ever fasted before? Anyone ever go a day without food? Anyone ever go a few days without food, or a few weeks without food? Anyone ever feel great from going a few days without food and feeling really wonderful from it? Ehret really encapsulated and kind of brought home that if we do what the rest of the universe, what the rest of the living world is doing, we too can have that same kind of health. One of the beautiful things about Ehret is Ehret would really kind of say things like it is, and I think that's what creates so much inspiration from reading his books. I don't know how many times when I was going through the really first period of my body cleansing itself and detoxifying itself, getting rid of the mucus, where I would be fasting and I would sit there with Ehret's book like right at my side, like literally a copy of Mucusless Diet Healing System by my bedside, and I'd be like underlining and highlighting, and sometimes I would be like, oh yeah, this is a blessing, my body's healing itself and we're good. But his words are so strong that they really just gave such a tremendous amount of inspiration that in some way it just kind of kept me going. It's amazing how the person, check out these eyes. Can anyone see that? Check out those eyes. I mean, that kind of magnetism that comes through. This was a picture taken after a few days after a 49-day fast. Ehret used to do this wonderful thing where he really wanted to attract people to the whole movement. So while he was going through this period of cleansing himself, he used to do these fasts in public, where he'd go to like the main square in the European towns, and he'd set up like a jail, like a little prison, and he'd lock himself in, and then he'd go for weeks without eating, and he'd stay there, and he'd have like the town's I don't know what you call it, some of the town's officials would stay and they'd watch him and make sure he didn't leave. And he clearly attracted a lot of people to that, and he clearly attracted a tremendous amount of magnetism. 49 days no food. Looks wonderful. Ehret used to say things just like they are. Also, this is from the lesson 1 of Mucusless Diet Healing System, which I think is just a masterpiece. I mean, it's like just a few short pages. Check this out. The average person has as much as 10 pounds of uneliminated feces in the bowels, continually poisoning the bloodstream and the entire pipe system. Think of it. Every sick person has a more or less mucus-clogged system, such mucus being derived from undigested and uneliminated unnatural food substances accumulated from childhood on. How many people read that and they go, ew, not me? Well, you know what? It's you and it's me and it's all of us. And this really is he had a fantastic way of just saying, yes, this is you too. You too need to deal with yourself. You too need to take responsibility for the internal workings of your body. And I think that's one of the things also that just made him so attractive, was like he said, this is the way it is, and you can do that. Ehret also, I think, gives a lot of courage, gave me, and I think a lot of people who get the same kind of thing, is he gives a lot of, you get courage and conviction to continue what you're doing by the courage and conviction he had. he came from a generation which someone told me yesterday, I'd never heard this before, but he said, Ehret came from the missionary generation. I never really thought that before, but it was a generation of people, Norman Walker was kind of the same, who weren't afraid to go out and say, this is the truth, this is the way it is, and if you follow this, it will work for you. But actually, I've always shied away from saying, oh, this is the truth about something. But you know what? This raw foods that we're doing, this lifestyle that we're all working on living, this natural lifestyle, living in accordance with the laws of the world, it is the truth. Because it actually does work. I mean, I've never seen anything in medical science where I've never seen a person going to a hospital, taking drugs and being cut open, that comes out and goes, wow, I feel so vibrantly healthy, I can't wait to hug everybody. You know? How many people are walking around here today and like just hugging all the people that they don't even know? Because the vibe here is so wonderful. And so much of that is coming from that magnetism and this thing that we're building. Each of us is building by taking responsibility for ourselves, by living in accordance with the laws of nature. But Ehret would get out and say, this is the truth. My mucus theory and Mucusless Diet Healing System stand unshaken. It has proven the most successful compensation action, so-called cure against every disease. He had no problem about getting out there and going, how many times in the book does it say in bold letters, but I must teach you this truth about the world. If it was, or about how your body works. If it was just about anybody else, I would probably go, what do you mean you're telling me about the truth? But actually the stuff he's saying is really very there and to the point. Arnold Ehret also, I think, was very, I don't know if he thought of himself this way, but he probably did. I think he had a great sense of humor. I think he used to say some really very funny things in his book. And one thing I've noticed about people who continue along this path of raw food diet and do it over a period of time, and actually I'd have to say very much I think David Wolfe is great about this, because David will get out there and go, we're the best sellers of raw food books in the world. We're the #1. But if you sit down and talk to David, you realize he's really a very humble guy. And I think that's something that we really realize is our smallness by doing this. We realize like what a grain of sand on this immense beach of life that we really are, no matter how much we get out there. And I think Ehret kind of had that sense of humor within what he did. I was rereading Rational Fasting last night, and I found this quote which I just thought was so funny. Has anyone ever seen a healthy animal living in freedom, expectorate or blow its nose? So have you ever seen a deer walking around with a tissue blowing its nose, blowing all this mucus coming out of its, this waste coming out of its body? I think he had a really good sense of the humor in life. This is a great quote. I absolutely declare war on meat and alcohol. Big bold letters in Rational Fasting. But he makes a really good point with this. He used his humor to really get some good points across. And one of them, this is actually from a section where he's talking about moderation. He's talking about moderation in diet. The rest of the quote is, through fruit and moderate eating, these great evils are radically diminished. But whoever finds it impossible to entirely give up meat and alcohol, if he takes them moderately, is still far ahead of the vegetarian, over or excess eater. In other words, you can be eating the best kind of food in the world, and if you're eating too much of it, you're not doing your body good. You know, how many people have overeaten of raw foods? How many people have eaten more than one durian at a time? Huh? It's actually really true. You know, sometimes you hear about people, oh, but my grandfather smoked a cigar and ate meat and lived to be 100, 105. But you know, you talk to those people, and aside from that, they're on the edge of the bell curve, and they're not the average person, because the average person can't do that. They actually tend to be moderate. And I think it's a really good point that Ehret brought out. It's like, if someone is, maybe they're not a raw food vegetarian, but maybe if they're eating a very small amount of meat, and they're eating a moderate diet, they still can attain a much higher level of health, and much more longevity than a person who's overeating. So the point I'm making, this is something in my path I've really been trying to learn about too, is not to eat too much. Because I think it's great we have these wonderful, the wonderful taste of the raw foods and natural foods, especially like they come from nature, the wild greens, you pick the mulberries right off the tree and eat them. But learning to eat in moderation, that's a big theme that runs through Ehret's book, and it's something that I think, certainly I feel needs to be impressed upon myself and on all of us, I think, in the raw foods movement can get something from that. One of the last quote that I'll leave you with, and getting back to Ehret's simplicity, and I think his sense of humor too, but maybe I just found the humor because it's an anachronism. Whatever simple reason cannot grasp is humbug, however scientific it may sound. Does anyone understand what nutraceuticals are? Does anyone understand what the whole cornucopia of pharmaceuticals is about? Does anyone understand what, you go to a doctor, now they call it a procedure, and they cut people open, they cut people's every part open and remove sections of the body to try and fix it? I mean, does that make sense to anyone? Is anyone born here in a white suit with a scalpel? Does anyone see animals running around with white suits and scalpels, cutting people open and dissecting their organs so that they can regain health? It is really pretty ludicrous, but we live in a society where people are doing that constantly, and then living a kind of, unfortunately, living death. The rest of this quote, not only is it necessary to eradicate all these errors from your brain, but the truth must be shown you in such a new and simple light that you can grasp it at once. The great advantage of simplicity and clarity is one of the fundamental reasons for my success. And I know it's one of the fundamental reasons that those of us who are here in this in the Raw Foods Festival, that are following raw foods throughout the world and have done that throughout the world, is it's so simple and it's so easy. The laws of life are actually really very simple. And in our evolution, in our civilizedness, have come to think that it's actually a very complex thing. Let me finish out with a quote or a little poem that Arnold Ehret wrote. Many people don't know this, but Arnold Ehret was an art teacher. He taught art at university in Munich before he really embarked on this whole path of natural health and of natural life. And I'd like to also make reference in a personal sense to how art, through our raw food diet, we free up a tremendous amount of energy. That energy that all of a sudden doesn't have to be going to the stomach to empty it out, that doesn't have to be going to the bowels just to push out the vast quantities of food, now can go for lots of higher pursuits. Has anyone found themselves more interested in spiritual subjects and artistic subjects, more getting to know your life or feeling closer to yourself? I think that's definitely something that Ehret experienced. I personally, I'm a composer and a musician, and I know that the best work I've done has been just in the past few years since I made this change to going to eating 100% raw and going through a transition diet to mostly raw. So, an Ehret poem, which you're not going to find much of any place. It's entitled Ehretism. Trusting in an infamous lie, Adam broke the trust of Eden. Ever since arose the cry, man is fallen, man is beaten. Ever since there lays a curse over every man's design, and the mighty golden purse cannot purchase health divine. Sickness, death, nor shameful sin, never the cross has blotted out. Health of body, peace within, nature's foods must bring about. Never will the human race rid the body of its dross, till the apple takes the place of the emblem of the cross. Hale and strong, with calm repose, ruddy face, a healthy tan. Reward those who keep the oath, faith in Ehret's master plan. And that was written by Arnold Ehret. I'm not really sure when. I'm guessing around 1920, 1919, when he was living in California. This was actually given to Ehret's foremost disciple, who was Fred Hirsch, and it was given actually by some friends of his in August 1975, but I thought it was a very nice plaque. And I'd like to begin to segue actually into, Fred was Ehret's leading disciple. He's the reason that these books have been around, or one of the main reasons that they've been around since 1922, all through the kind of natural health pogroms that went on in the 40s and 50s, when natural health was so much suppressed and drugless healing was so much suppressed. And he really kept this whole message going. And I'm going to now bring up Alvin Last, and I'd like to please join me in giving him a round of applause, because he was a friend and associate of Fred Hirsch, and he's been keeping this whole Ehret Publishing Company going for the last 15 years, so he's going to have
What is that going to cost me? Sorry. Thanks, Robin. I knew Fred Hirsch, and I purchased the Ehret Literature Publishing Company from Fred about 25 years ago. That included all the memorabilia, the unpublished writings in German, photos, original photos. In this book that some of you may have seen are copies of those photos. I have the originals here, and I'll show them at the end for those who are interested. One is dated 1909. I want to discuss primarily Fred and Arnold Ehret, Fred Hirsch and Arnold Ehret in Los Angeles. Fred said to me about 25 or more years ago, Arnold Ehret saved my life. Arnold Ehret came to Southern California in the end of 1914, apparently still in his quest for new types of raw foods, as well as certain spiritual things. He had gone to Algeria, where he first found some of these fruits that were not available in Germany or in Northern Europe. And went to Palestine, went to many other places. It was called Palestine in those days. And then he apparently heard about California and the wonderful things they have there, and came here. I understand he's traveling now at the turn of the century. Not very easy. No cell phones, very few automobiles. In fact, no regular phones to speak of. So he was really working very hard at doing what he was doing, and I think some people overlooked that you just don't get on an aircraft and fly over to Algeria, especially from northern Germany or central Germany. He came to the United States and was trapped here by the First World War. He could not return. So he started to lecture in Los Angeles. And this is where Fred Hirsch enters the picture. And this is what Fred said to me. I was an alcoholic, and Fred, by the way, at that time was a salesman of fire equipment to firehouses. And as I believe the Dr. Rose Ragtime discussed some of these firehouses, they were clubs. They drank, they ate, they gambled, and occasionally they even went to a fire. Fred got into this lifestyle, and he enjoyed it apparently, but he was getting sick. He wasn't feeling well. He was dying. But that's not how Ehret saved his life. Fred got an infection in one of his feet, and it festered. And the medical profession in those days, although it may not have improved much now, they still cut. And the treatment of choice was amputation. Fred was not particularly pleased with this diagnosis. And he had read, he said in I guess a newspaper, a little announcement that this person, Arnold Ehret, Professor Arnold Ehret, as he called himself, was giving a lecture on the topic of health. He wasn't sure what it was, and he went. He became a patient of Arnold Ehret. I knew someone, and I'm probably one of the few people left that knew someone who was actually physically treated by Arnold Ehret. And this was about 1919. Fred was cured. He did not lose his foot. The treatment lasted about a year. He came back to health. Demon rum was no longer chasing him. He stayed with fire equipment, but he was able to sell the fire equipment and eventually bought the company that he worked for. But he found he did not have to indulge as he had been in the past. He graduated from the Mucusless Diet Healing System class of 1922. It was in July. In the picture I have here, I have a copy of the original photo of the banquet for the graduating class. Fred is sitting to the right of Ehret. But the reason Fred said Ehret saved my life is because he saved his foot. And further to that, amputation very often led to continued amputation until there was nothing left to amputate. I have a lot of Fred's personal things his wife gave me after he died. Fred died in 1979. Ehret died in October of 22. This picture is from July of 22. That's a pretty brief description of how Ehret and Fred met. Fred is responsible for not having this material destroyed. Ehret had no family here. He was never married. He does have family still in Germany. I met his great-great-aunt about 10 or 15 years ago. This is somewhat funny. I had a copy of Kranke Menschen, which means sick person, or, as you will correct me, sick human being. And I showed it to them, and I said, I have a lot of his writings not published, and his pictures and a whole bunch of other bits of memorabilia. And we had a translator there. This was at a Catholic church. Ehret was Catholic. He did quit the church. As a sidelight, he wrote a 3-page letter to the Pope denouncing the dietary habits of the Catholic Church, saying it was killing Catholics. Obviously, the Pope didn't answer it. But I have 2 pages of that letter. I don't have a 3rd page. I had someone read it to me once, actually in Zurich many years ago. But that was Ehret, and it would not be Ehret today if it were not for Fred Hirsch, and perhaps not for me, because this is not an easy thing to carry on. It's difficult in the outside world for people to understand Ehret's teachings, his thoughts, his philosophies. I hope to be able to publish, with the help of certain people, other of the unpublished documents I have. I have a couple pages of them here. They are in German. There are scratchings of corrections that he made. I also have, I believe, a couple of the documents in his own longhand. But I invite you to come up here and look. I'll answer any questions you might have. Does anyone have any questions about this relationship, Bob?
Is autopsy report available?
I'm going to go to LA tomorrow. I'm going to see if I can find it. It would be in Los Angeles records, and it's not that long ago that it shouldn't be able to be found. I found in in the church's record of births and deaths, I found the reference to his birth, which included his mother's maiden name and things of that nature. So there are documents that are kept, and I'm sure that that's I have to look for that. I just have a lot of things to do to try to get Ehret back. When I bought it, I was very interested in it, but other things drove me, and my son ran it for a while, and then he just got involved in other things, and it was neglected. I'm trying to un-neglect it. I'm trying to put it back on a raw food diet.
Do you follow the teachings of Arnold Ehret?
No, I'm trying to transition at this point.
When did he die?
He died, and this was what Fred told me. They're coming out of a meeting. There were 3 of them. There was a young lady, there was Ehret, and there was Fred Hirsch. does not know, I asked him, did he know who the woman was, and he said, no, he didn't remember anymore. But they came out, and the stones, the paving stones were slippery, it was misty, and Ehret slipped and fell back and had a basic fracture. That's fatal today. You're dead the minute you hit the ground. That's fatal. There's no way that even today they can do anything, because he died. He snapped. I guess what is it, the medulla oblongata, you snap it, and you're dead, and that's what happened. It was very instant. He was 56. Still young, pretty healthy, still curing people. And that was actually, as a little sidelight, Ehret was not a good business person. He came from a fairly well-to-do family. I saw the house he was born in. His aunt still lives in it. His great-great-aunt still lives in it. His extensive family in southern Germany, in Freiburg, 6 kilometers outside of Freiburg, in a little town called St. Jorgen or St. George. And the cemetery there is full of Ehrets. These tombstones, so state. I'm going off track now.
Where's he buried?
He's buried in Los Angeles. There's a picture of the stone for him. What was that? Did you have another part of the question that I missed? No. Okay. What I missed? Okay. Any other? Okay. Please, back first.
Every book we call The Story of My Life. You know, it's unfinished. You know, it's unfinished. You know, there's no way.
I don't believe we have it, do we?
No, actually, Enrique, that book was written erroneously by another company who's printing Ehret's books. And you know, after studying the Ehret documents and reading Ehret's writings, that's not written by him. And no, he didn't write it, and it's a story. I mean, you open the book and you read through it, and it's a fiction.
We have
It's
some
just not
copyright
his
issues.
life.
I'm sorry. We have some copyright issues. There are some people who are going against the copyrights, which started in, I have one here that was 1924, but they started in 1919, 1920. Maybe a little later. Rob and I differ a little on that. Fred had an unfortunate experience with someone back in the 50s, and there were some lawsuits and things. And these people, there are a few people that are now publishing books that I have copyrights on, and I probably will chase them. It was a little bit of a gravy train. As Fred grew older, he just couldn't fight the battle so much. So he had two companies. He had something called Interclean, which was an herbal laxative that Ehret used, and he continued that. He sold that first as he got older, but he kept the books for a few years, and then he turned the books over because he was getting too old to handle that. So there are some legal issues involved. So I'm worried too. Yes, there was some copyright infringement and some apparently fraudulent writing. That's what happens with your things. I have one more question, then I'll get back to you. Yes, please.
You mentioned that you started out looking for different plants, and I think of the Bach flower remedies, and before that, the discovery of morphine from a plant. And I think the person who was, I think maybe around that time, people were looking for something like morphine. And I just wonder if that was also Ehret's early pursuit, to look for plants that would be as miraculous as morphine. And
To the best of my knowledge, he did not look for curative plants. I don't know of any reference to him looking at opium or the opium poppy or digitalis or any of these other botanical pharmaceuticals. I happen to have a degree in pharmacy, and I did it a long time ago, and one of the courses I took was pharmacognosy, which was the study of plants' interactions on the human body. Shortly after I graduated, they discontinued it because we went through that period that Rob was talking about, and now they are teaching it again.
That's good.
Yeah. Bob?
somewhere in his writings to a comprehensive course. I wonder if that survives or.
Rob would answer.
Yeah, it's actually, I gotta say, I really gotta thank Alvin, because I've been really lucky over the past few months to be going through Ehret's library and Fred Hirsch's personal library. And yeah, there is a course, but by and large, it's the Mucusless Diet Healing System. That's one of the reasons why I kind of emphasize the simplicity of it all, because it's pretty much all there. Like, I've looked at Ehret's lesson, his lesson notes. It's pretty much the Mucusless Diet Healing System. There are some lesson course papers that I've been going through recently, and yeah,
Did he keep a personal diary of his path to health?
I haven't come across it.
No, I don't know of one.
I think the best chronicle of it is the introduction to the Mucusless Diet Healing System is that B.W. Child's, where Ehret talks about what happened and where his travels in Algiers and searching for different fruits and living, all.
I have a couple of questions. Which came first, rational fasting or Mucusless diet?
I think rational fasting may have.
It's difficult to tell. Actually, they probably came up about the same time. They were part of each other. But in order not to confuse the issue, he separated fasting from his diet. It's instead of firing one big cannon shot, he fired two. I would think that would be it. I think they developed kind of side by
I
side.
have a feeling that rational fasting came out first, and I'm not sure why, because we haven't
I
found
can't
the first
document
edition
it.
of either one.
When we get some of these translations that we don't have, that may help us a bit. But they're bits and pieces, and they're notations on the backs of documents. And, it's something that needs to be put together, and it's going to take a while to do it.
Now, if I'm not mistaken,
That's only to remind you to put it back.
that information just came out shortly before his death.
What's that?
There's two books.
But there were two books?
Okay, the
Okay,
Mucusless diet and
Let me
if he had died earlier, those. Go ahead.
Let me continue, and that's what I started to say before, and I lost track. Ehret was not a businessman. Fred Hirsch was a businessman. They both spoke German. Ehret spoke English, but not as well, obviously. Fred was an American, and he spoke as we speak. Fred did it. The two of them formed an alliance, a business partnership. That's how Fred ended up with all these documents. He was Ehret's business partner at that time. Now, to answer your question, I believe that Fred got the idea that, look, let's spread it further, let's spread the word further, let's publish your lectures. And in effect, and that's where we differed a little bit on the date we spoke about before, it was probably 1920, 21. You think it was a little bit later. I don't have the first edition, I have a second. I think it's, let's say, 1920, 21. That's when the first edition came out. It was a business decision on Fred's part and a decision by, an agreement by Ehret, as I see it, to publish the book. Because we have copies of Comprehension, which he published in Germany. There are a lot of articles that I don't have that he wrote in various publications, periodicals, newspapers, whatever. I don't have those. I know there were several of them out there. I do have Comprehension. So he was a publisher before, and with Fred they did it in English. And by the way, Fred did it in Spanish, I believe Norwegian, French. They're not in print anymore. I have copies, but they're not in print anymore.
There was someone who started a political party and ran for president who was all through it. And this was around the time of the Depression. And then there's also, I was wondering how some of the people that are in the movement now or around the time were influenced by Ehret, if you know the names. Like Brown was Brown, or Walker, were they influenced by Ehret?
Oh, very much. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, both then And now, I mean, cite Ehret as like the catalyst that made them do what they do. I mean, now you hear that a lot. I mean, you can talk to a lot of the speakers that are here today, and you ask them like, what was the book you read that really got you doing this? And you ask Dave Wolf, you know, what was the first book that got he was like Rational Fast, you know, Mucusless Diet Healing System. But they definitely were aware of each other, just like the people you see here today are aware of each other. But if you read Paul Bragg's book, I mean, Ehret is listed on the first page as one of his great influences. I don't remember exactly how he titles it, but like, you know, the great doctors of natural cure.
I think we're timed now. We're looking at a quarter two. I'll show you some original pictures here that I have. You can look at any of this if you're interested in the books or any more information. Where right behind this blackboard is green.
The pictures by the way, the pictures he has here are not the ones that are on the table. This is like the original documents that you're not going to get a chance to see any other time. So like these are amazing original photos of Ehret. So come check them out. Because you know, the few of you that are here are going to get to see some stuff that other people don't get to see at all.
I'll show them again outside if you can't see them all.
So how old is he then?
How old would you say?
Late 20s.
Probably.
This is pre-fasting. This is before he went through his whole cure.
So he was pretty buff even when he was
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of sick.
He was, but
yeah.
take a look under his eyes and take a look at the quality of his eyes. Like look at the energy, like look at the difference in the energy that's coming from him there and then the pictures you're going to see later on.
So this is early 20s.
Yeah. I
He
think
looks
so.
older than that.
Yeah. He wasn't feeling so good.
So look at the difference, wait till you see the difference in the shape of his face too, as you go through this transformation.
As soon as I get it back in here. Whoever invented these things.
Leave it out so we can compare before and after.
These are so
I
rare.
can't do
Yeah,
that.
these are actually like very rare photos.
This was a drawing.
I would like to get a copy of this.
Now join the Ehret Health Club.
Okay, yeah, so I have to do it then. I'll do it. I like that one. That picture right there.
That
belongs
drawing
to-
is fantastic.
That's what made
That
me.
was done in 1924, I'm guessing by one of his followers. What was her name? Alice? What did it say?
He's so bushy,
Yeah.
Yeah. When he,
bushman.
These are some of the original photographs.
those are the early ones pre-fasting also.
Yeah, he looks kind of very full in the face.
There's more of the ones that were
So
on
Can I
he's
see those
always
again?
interested
Sure.
in being
Yeah, those
healthy,
are
it looks like.
amazing.
Yeah.
Aren't these amazing? Whoops. I have to get them in a better album. This is the way Fred gave them to me. Some of them have
Make sure I
notation.
see a picture of Fred Hirsch. I haven't seen him.
A Fred? Oh,
There's
there's one in here actually.
There's one with Albert Einstein in there.
Actually, this is the, remember Alvin was saying that the 1922 graduation? This is the 22 graduation. This is Ehret. And this is Fred Hirsch is sitting right next to him. And that was their graduating class from his Mucusless Diet Healing School. Something that's really amazing is Ehret used to charge $100.
Back then, at a
Back then, I
big
mean,
bucks.
he charged money, and people came out to see him because like the force of his personality must have just been so strong. I mean, you could just see it in those photos.
I'm just going to digress quickly. This is, I'm going the wrong way. This is Fred Hirsch with Albert Einstein.
Let's see. That's of course Einstein, Fred Hirsch. We don't know who that is, but
probably his
it's
wife.
one of Einstein's wives.
Yeah, it's not Fred's wife. That's not
No.
Lucille.
That's very interesting.
Einstein was pro-vegetarian.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was well, Bob will argue with me, but he was a part-time vegetarian. If such a thing
Einstein.
exists.
Who, Einstein?
Yeah.
Einstein. I know he dabbled. But that's an amazing photograph, actually.
That's after
soon
he
I think
fasted?
that's soon after.
Well,
that,
there's some notes on the back that need to be looked at. I just need to spend some time with this. There's just so much material.
This is after the 49-day fast. That's actually that photo that.
That's this photo.
That's
yeah.
this photo. We actually, if anyone wants any of these, we have a bunch of them for sale. We're not like $4. So if anyone wants to take them home, this is a photo that's not in any of the books. We have them back over at the table.
These are they're mixed. We need to sit down and sort them. This, I believe, is
That's what they used for the
for this
drawing.
drawing. Yeah.
He looks
They-
like such a thinker, a pensive man.
Yes. Well, he and Fred got along very well.
Looks like a sage.
Yeah, that's the same thing. This is one of the more, some of the stuff were duplicates, but they were kind of beat up.
Look at this one.
Now, how old is he in this picture?
We're not absolutely certain if there's no mark on the
I
back.
think there's a date on it.
Is that him?
Let me see.
Hey, who's that guy?
This is actually taken in Nuremberg, so this must be before he came to the States.
Oh, yeah. This is
I'm
not-
guessing that would be 1915.
Here's when he was in the military.
And this is who?
Well, that's looks like correct.
That's
That's
in one of
right.
his.
Let me ask
That's
the
in one of
question.
his more different. There's Fred Hirsch's interclean truck.
Ah, let me ask the question right quick. In his books, he talks about, the Bible is heavily referenced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he talked, did he actually believe that through being internally pure, you could get rid of what he called sodomites of the day? And what did he mean by sodomites?
I don't remember reading the word sodomites.
You don't remember that?
He talked about venereal diseases, but other than that, I don't know that he.
Well, I think what he's saying is the same thing like the Essene Gospel of Peace is saying, which is, cleanse yourself internally, and you will cleanse yourself of what in the Essene Gospel of Peace says is Satan. He mentions Essenes in his book, and I think he very much understood
Must be his daddy.
what was going on.
I don't know who that is.
Looks like an Ehret to me.
Yeah, definitely an error.
I wonder if that's
We have to
his-
look at the back of these. I don't want to take these out of here now because they.
So what made you decide to publish the Ehret, the
Why did I buy it?
publishing company? Yeah.
Yeah, because I bought through my other company, Interclean, and later on Fred said, I can't do the books, you want the books, and I was kind of interested in it, so I bought the book company, which happened to be all this memorabilia. Kind of interesting.
There is a biography by some woman, I can't remember her name, but I have a copy of that.
Yeah, that's the one. It's called Story of My Life.
Oh, is it? Oh.
That's the one who was supposedly
Apparently that was used
his,
it was used,
secretary. Yes, but as I was reading that, years ago, before I knew Alvin,
This is the original first
didn't feel right.
that's second edition.
And Bruce
That's the original
thought it
cover?
was
It's the original cover. It's leather.
What about this one? Does it have that?
That's a